Gwf-Vis, developed under the Global Water Futures Program, empowers hydrological model developers to quickly prototype interactive visualization dashboards for high-dimensional hydrological data, integrate and leverage any Python libraries for in-place data analytics, and share findings through simple file or link sharing mechanism. Our website is located at this link. Here you can check the About information, demo gallery, team members, funding source, and contact information of the Gwf-Vis project. To explore our demos, you can go to the gallery section. To check the Python code that generates the specific demo vis, you can click the corresponding C code button. To explore a specific demo vis, click the corresponding snapshot. It will direct you to the visualization automatically. Here we are just going to pick a random variable from the drop-down to show a glance of the vis for now. We will talk more about the interface details later. A wiki link of our Python helper library is available in the About section. You can click it to go to the wiki page. In the wiki page, we provide some helpful links, as well as how to install and get started with the Python helper library. To understand the workflow of using Gwf-Vis, let's click this examples link here. Let's click this link here. Now we are at our Getting Started repository, where you can find some basic instructive example projects. To grab the source code, you can click the code button here. You can use the URL provided here to clone the Git repository, or you can download a copy by clicking the Download Zip button. Once the source code is cloned or downloaded, you should be able to use your preferred code editor or IDE to work on it. Note that if you download the source code as a zip file, you need to unzip it to your working directory. Also, your development environment should have Python 3 installed. For this showcase, we're going to use Visual Studio Code as our code editor, and our development environment is backed with the Ubuntu OS. First, let's look into the minimal example. A README file is here to provide information about this minimal example. As the first step, we want to install the required Python dependencies. We are creating a Python virtual environment here. Note that this step is optional, but it can help to isolate the dependencies between different projects. We are creating a virtual environment to the directory venv, and we are activating it for the project. Now we have activated and are using the virtual environment that we just created. Instead of installing each required Python dependency one by one, a requirements.txt file is provided here to help simplifying the installation process. By using the requirements.txt file, we can install all required Python dependencies all at once. Now, let's take a look at our sample dataset located in the raw directory. We got a features.ghsin file, which contains 2 polygon features, and each of the feature includes 2 mock properties foo and bar. We also got 2 CSV files that stand for 2 variables. Each row stands for the corresponding polygon feature. Each column stands for mock timestamps the variable has. After checking the mock dataset structure, we can go to the data processing script. By installing the Python and Jupyter extensions for the Visual Studio Code, we can run the Python script by cells. The first cell is just to import our packages. Then, we can check and modify the input and output paths in the following cell. When they look good, we just run it. The next cell contains codes to read the input files, which includes the GeoJSON file and the CSV files. The next cell uses the Gwf-Vis DB module to create an info record, which are considered as the dataset's metadata. Next, we extract information from the GeoJSON file to create our location records. Then we create a time dimension definition with size of 5, which matches our mock dataset. Now we create two variable definitions with the dimension we defined above. After defining the dimensions and variables, here we generate our value records with values in the CSV files based on the location, variable, and timestamp. Till now, the data is well prepared. Now we just need to generate the DB file using the prepared data. The whole script is now fully executed, and the generated Gwf-Vis database file should now be located at our output path. After generating our Gwf-Vis DB file, let's look into the script for configuring a visualization. First, we import the Python packages. For this demo, we're going to use our local file system to serve the DB file. We are creating a variable storing the DB file's relative path to the out directory for later use. Now we use the functions provided by our Python helper packages to create a new vis config. Then, we set the initial view and the page title. Also, we want to tell VGA that we want the local file system access. To make it be able to read the Gwf-Vis DB file, we are adding our data provider plugins provided by the Gwf-Vis platform. Here we use a local file-based Gwf-Vis DB as our data source and add a GeoJSON layer to show our data, which is set as overlay and to be active. We want to add a data control to control the displayed data source, variable, and dimension values. We put it into the main view and set the available data sources. Now, we add a metadata plugin into sidebar in order to showing metadata of the selected location. Then, we add a line chart into the sidebar to show time series data of the selected location. We need to configure which data source and which dimension it is for. Here, we add a legend plugin into the main view, and we specify its container's width. There are typically 3 different ways that you might want to output the configuration. The first way is to print the JSON string directly, and then you can copy and paste it in a text file. The second way is to print a long URL that contains the configuration as a data URL, so you can directly use it to see the visualization for quick prototyping. The third way is to save the configuration as a JSON-based file, which you can share or open later. Let's see how the visualization would look like. First, we copy the long URL that we generated previously. Then, we paste it into the browser's address bar and go to the URL. Since we requested local file access from VGA, when loading the visualization, a dialog look like this would show up. Due to the browser's limitation, we are required to manually give permission of a local directory by clicking the Select Root Directory button. To match our configuration, we need to select the directory that contains our previously generated Gwf-Vis DB file as the root directory. After selecting the folder, we need to confirm the permission from the followed browser dialog. If the permission is granted, we should be able to enter the visualization dashboard. In the visualization dashboard, the map should initially align with our previously configured zoom level and center point. The top right icon is the layer control. Here we can see a base layer, which is added by default, and an overlay layer we added in the configuration. Here, we see no overlay on the map because we did not yet select which data we want to see. We go to the data control to select our data source and variable. Once selected, a time dimension slider, which comes with 5 timestamps from 0 to 4, would show up and available to be selected. The polygons would also show up and are colored according to the variable and timestamp selection. If we toggle our overlay layer in the layer control, you can see the polygon layer becomes inactive and active depending on our selection. If we choose other timestamps, the polygons would be re-rendered automatically. The legend here would show the color scheme of the polygons. When hover on a polygon, a tooltip would show up with the location ID and its current variable value. We can click it to select the location and see its metadata and time series line chart in the sidebar. If we click a timestamp in the line chart, a dialog would show up to ask if we want to select the timestamp, which serves the same function as in the data control. Actually, the selected timestamp value would be updated automatically in the data control as well. Just in case sometimes we want to see a chart in a larger view, we can click the Enlarge button to make a plugin's view larger. If we want to check for another variable, we can change it from the data control. Once we change the variable selection, all the corresponding views would update. For example, the line chart is showing data for variable 2 now. Now, let's check some of our demos. We first check the mesh demo. Note that you can click the See Code button to check the Python code for generating the visualization. Let's click the snapshot to load the visualization. This demo uses a dataset that contains polygon-based geofeatures. For each geofeature, it contains multiple variables. And for each variable, there is a time dimension standing for different timestamps. We want to select the mesh data source from data control. Once it is selected, the polygon would show up. Currently, the polygon is not colored yet. We can select a variable from data control to see the polygon's coloring based on the variable values. We can select different timestamps or other variables, and the colors of polygons would update based on it. We can click to select an interested polygon to see its metadata and its time series values. The first line chart shows data for the current selected variable, while the second shows data for 2 preconfigured variables. We can also pin locations for quick revisiting. Each pin location would be given a colored circle button, which can be used to revisit the corresponding data. If we select another variable, the first line chart that shows data for current selected variable would update. For this dataset, some variables are relating to multiple dimensions. If we select such a variable, multiple dimension sliders would show up. The line charts in this demo are configured only for time dimensions, so they would follow our current selected values for other dimensions. The permafrost demo uses a matrix-based dataset. In this dataset, we got multiple dimensions for each variable. To properly display the matrix space data, we use a contours layer and we scale the colors using thresholds. When clicking on the contour layer, the nearest data point would be selected to show the charts for different dimensions. If you want to check for each data point, you can toggle the point-based layer in the layer control. Here is another demo called Gloric. In the Gloric demo, it shows that we can embed custom content, such as a website, into the dashboard. Also, it demonstrates selecting multiple variables in the data control. These variable values are reflected as the fill color, and stroke weight. Due to performance concern, we used only a small area of the Gloric dataset. To render a larger Canada-wide dataset, we implement a custom GPU-rendered map layer with vector tiles. We are able to show the Canada-wide visualization and see each geo-feature's metadata. This concludes our short demo for Gwf-Vis. Thank you for watching this video.